in P5, if you don't look at any of the other example videos, this is the video to look at. This is the toughest part, completing the square. We're going to do it here. I'm going to introduce it to you today, and then later on in the chapter, later on in the semester, we're going to be doing it a little bit more, and hopefully through those times it'll make sense when we do it a couple times. So completing the square is another way to solve an equation. There are other ways to do it. Keep in mind that with this entire section, whatever way works to do it is just fine. You might be given a choice. I guess I wouldn't choose completing the square if I had the choice, but it's worthwhile to take a look at for future reference. So completing the square means what we're going to do is we're going to follow these steps. Now these steps, we're first of all going to start by dividing everything by a if necessary. Now a is the number out in front of x squared, and so since that's just 1 in this case, we really don't need to worry about that step. The second step though is a little more universal, and that is isolate x squared plus bx. Now we want to just take care of this stuff and put that on its own side, and so I can accomplish that by just adding 9 to the other side of this equation. So my next step is just going to be x squared plus 5x, and then I'm going to leave a little bit of space and say equal to 9. You'll find out about that little bit of space here in a moment. So once we have that, then number 3, this is the step that if you don't write anything down from this problem otherwise, this is a little formula that you will need to know. This is a handy formula that will allow you to use this completing the square pattern, which again might take a little while to come back to where all this stuff works in, but please just try to bear with me for now. So C equals B over 2 squared. C is referring to this last spot on our left-hand side here. So we want to find the term that goes right there. We're going to do that by b over 2 squared. So a little side problem here. We're going to take and find c, and we know that that is b over 2 squared. Well, in this case, b is 5, because that's our b right there. That's 5. So 5 over 2 squared. All right, square that. And when you square a fraction, it's top squared, bottom squared, so that's 25 over 4. Now, if you want to, in this process, to just go right away to the decimal approximation, you can. It is 6.25, but you might be better served to wait for just a moment on that. So I'm going to plug this in here. It's 25 over 4. And I'm going to go from here. Now, this is the time where I can actually use the method, this factoring the left-hand side. What we're going to do, it ends up making a special factoring pattern called the perfect square trinomial pattern. This is the part that might be a little confusing at first, and let me know if you have questions on this part when you're in class. But we're going to factor this side. If we use this pattern, the way it's set up is that we can count on that side to be something squared. And the way that we fill this in is we think about this first one. Square root of x squared is x. And so we're going to put that in here. Square root of 25 over 4 is 5 halves. What goes in between is the plus or the minus, whatever is the sign represented in the middle. Now that might seem like it's kind of just this magical method, but it works because of the way that we use this C equation up here. Now let's finish out this problem kind of like we did with the extracting square roots. Since we have a square on this side, we can take the square root of both this one and of this one, and we can simplify these sides. Now here's the point where I'm going to start turning things into decimals. And so, I just made a bad error. I forgot totally about this, that when you do something to one side of an equation, you got to do it to the other. So I'm going to add 25 fourths to this side. You can't just add something to anything and call it good. We have to make sure that the equation is balanced. So that means over here, I have to add 25/4. This is where I'm going to turn it into decimal numbers. And so I'm going to call this one 15.25. And then over here, once I take that square root, I'm going to go x plus 2.5. And then over here, the square root of 15.25 is approximately 3.9. Don't forget about the plus and minus over on that side. All right, we're almost done. The last part is just to subtract the 2.5, and so x equals plus or minus 3.9 minus 2.5. Positive version, get an answer. Negative version, get an answer. This is going to be 1.4 and negative 6.4 approximately. That is, I know, a huge pain to use this process, but like I said, we're going to be encountering this from time to time in the semester, and I want you to just at least have a start here. But I realize that there will be a number of questions on this when we come back in class or on Google Meet.